In the world of true crime, few cases have captivated the public's attention, quite like the chilling mystery of Sister Abhaya. For 28 long years, her tragic death haunted investigators, puzzling both the police and the public. Was it a tragic accident, a case of suicide, or something far more sinister? Her lifeless body was found in a convent well in 1992, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and suspicions. But after nearly 3 decades of twists, turns, and dead ends, the case was finally solved. Grab a seat, because this isn't just another cold case. It's a true crime story with a startling conclusion that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about justice, faith, and secrets buried deep within the walls of a convent. Background. In 1992, Kottayam was a calm town in Kerala, India. Surrounded by green hills and peaceful streets, it was the kind of place where nothing bad seemed to happen. The town was known for its strong Christian faith, with many churches and convents playing a big part in the people's daily lives. In this peaceful town, life was mostly simple and centered around faith, prayer, and community. One of the most important places in Kottayam was the St. Pius X convent. This convent was a place where nuns lived and a hostel for young women. Many of these women were studying to become nuns, or were already dedicated to a life of service to God. The convent was a safe place for these women to study, pray, and grow spiritually. Among the many young women at the convent was Sister Abhaya. At 21 years old, Sister Abhaya was full of promise and dedication. Her story is one of deep devotion to her faith and her desire to make a difference in the world around her. She had joined the convent as a young woman eager to serve others, study, and grow spiritually. At the time, Sister Abhaya was also studying at a local pre-degree college, preparing for her academic future while continuing her religious duties. The young nun was committed to her studies and helping others. She believed deeply in the values of kindness, service, and faith. Though her life was marked by devotion and a strong sense of purpose, Sister Abhaya's future would be cut short. On the night of March 27, 1992, her life would come to a shocking and mysterious end. Her untimely death would send ripples through the town of Kottayam and the entire community. For years, her death would remain a mystery, one that would haunt the people who knew her, and leave a lasting impact on the religious community she had been a part of. The events leading to the tragedy. The night before an important exam, Sister Abhaya was preparing to study. She was dedicated to her education and knew how important it was to prepare for her exams. Like many students, she planned to get a good night's sleep, set her alarm for an early start, and study in peace. No one knew her study session would lead to a tragedy that would remain unsolved for many years. Sister Abhaya went to bed with her books beside her, fully intending to study hard the next day. When her alarm went off at 4 a.m., she woke immediately and began her day. The convent was quiet at this hour, and Sister Abhaya greeted some other nuns starting their day. They exchanged a few words, and everything seemed calm and normal. Sister Abhaya then went to her room to study. Around the middle of the morning, she decided to take a short break from studying. She might have been thirsty or just wanted to stretch her legs. She went to the kitchen, which was a simple break in her routine, but this break turned out to be very important. Some strange clues were found in the kitchen. A water bottle with its cap off, spilled water on the floor, and one of Sister Abhaya's slippers was nearby. These clues suggested she had left quickly, or something had interrupted her. But what? A sense of unease began to settle in when the morning turned to noon. Sister Abhaya was nowhere to be found. Her friends and fellow nuns started to notice her absence, and the convent's usual calm turned to worry. Had she gone for a walk? Perhaps she was meeting with someone? But panic slowly crept in as the hours ticked by without a sign of her. A search was quickly organized. The nuns retraced her last known steps, starting with the kitchen where she had been seen. They found the clues there: the water bottle, spilled water, and the missing slipper. But these weren't enough to explain her disappearance. The mystery deepened as they realized the gravity of the situation. Where could she have gone? And why had she left so suddenly? As the search continued, a second slipper was discovered near the convent's well. The discovery was both puzzling and chilling. It seemed like the clues were leading somewhere, toward the well. The nuns, hearts heavy with dread, hurried to the well, unsure what to find. And then, the moment that would change everything arrived. Sister Abhaya's lifeless body was found at the bottom of the well. It was a horrific discovery, one that no one could have expected. How had she ended up there? Was it an accident or something far darker? Aftermath. The first to arrive on the scene were the local fire department and the police. The firefighters, trained for all kinds of emergencies, worked diligently to pull Sister Abhaya's lifeless body from the well. The police responded quickly, trying to make sense of the situation. Their job was to ensure the area was secure and begin the early investigation stages. The discovery of Sister Abhaya's body would mark the beginning of a complex and controversial case that would remain unsolved for years. Despite their swift response, the scene was far from ordinary. How the young nun ended up in the well raised immediate questions. Was it a tragic accident? Could it have been a suicide? Or was there something far more sinister at play? As the emergency teams worked to recover her body, these questions hovered in the air, unanswered and disturbing. The news of Sister Abhaya's death spread quickly through the convent and the nearby hostel where she had lived. The reactions were instant: shock, disbelief, and confusion. This was a place that, until that morning, had been a peaceful haven for young women studying to become nuns. The investigation began, like most others. The officers documented the discovery of Sister Abhaya's lifeless body in the convent's well. A report was promptly written to record the details of the scene. A photographer was called in to capture images of the area, a routine but essential step in preserving evidence. Meanwhile, her body was sent for an autopsy to determine the cause of death. At first glance, these actions seemed thorough enough. But as the investigation unfolded, cracks began to show in the procedure and its conclusions. The autopsy report revealed unsettling details. Cuts and bruises marked Sister Abhaya's body, with one particularly significant injury, a head wound that hinted at a violent encounter. Despite these signs of trauma, the official cause of death was listed as drowning. The contradiction was glaring. If she had drowned, how did she sustain these injuries? And if the injuries occurred before her death, what exactly had happened to her? These were the questions no one could yet answer. In a twist that left many scratching their heads, the investigation quickly labeled her death a suicide. The rationale? While there was evidence of possible foul play, the officials at the time seemed unwilling or unable to explore it fully. The possibility of murder was mentioned in passing, but it was brushed aside without a thorough explanation. The suicide theory came under heavy criticism. The injuries, especially the head wound, did not align with the idea of someone simply taking their own life. Moreover, Sister Abhaya was described by those who knew her as a cheerful, dedicated young woman, hardly someone likely to end her life so abruptly. The conclusion of suicide didn't sit well with many people. The convent's silence on the matter added to the suspicion. Why weren't the authorities investigating the possibility of foul play more rigorously? Was this a negligence case, or was there an active attempt to cover up something far more sinister? Amid the mounting doubts and public outcry, one name stood out: Joan Puen Periclet. Refusing to let Sister Abhaya's story fade into obscurity, Periclet formed a justice committee that became the driving force behind the quest for truth. The committee organized protests, raised awareness, and pressured authorities to take the case seriously. It symbolized hope for those disillusioned by the slow wheels of justice. Activism turned what could have been a forgotten tragedy into a national movement, reminding everyone that no life should be dismissed as unworthy of investigation. The crime branch steps in after the local police failed to provide clear answers. The case was handed over to the crime branch on April 16, 1992. The decision was a step toward ensuring a thorough and impartial investigation. The public hoped that this specialized unit, with its expertise in complex cases, would uncover the truth behind Sister Abhaya's untimely death. The crime branch investigation concluded that Sister Abhaya's death was a suicide. As critics later pointed out, this finding was based on questionable evidence and ignored key inconsistencies. However, this was not the only controversy surrounding their investigation. One of the most glaring lapses was the destruction of Sister Abhaya's clothes, which could have provided vital forensic evidence. The medical examination was severely limited without this, leaving little concrete proof to support any theory. This raised serious doubts about the investigation's integrity and sparked outrage among the public. Was this incompetence or something more sinister? While the crime branch declared their case closed, the public and media weren't convinced. Widespread coverage of the case reignited interest, and people began piecing together their theories. Whispers of foul play, cover-ups, and institutional involvement spread like wildfire. The more the authorities tried to suppress the issue, the louder the public demanded answers. This relentless pressure forced higher authorities to take notice. It was clear that justice for Sister Abhaya would require a fresh perspective and an agency that could withstand external influences. Escalation and the entry of the CBI. As months passed, public trust in the crime branch's findings waned. Media outlets picked up the story, amplifying its details and asking tough questions. The public, too, grew increasingly suspicious, forming their theories about what might have happened to Sister Abhaya. Some speculated it was a case of murder, possibly tied to power struggles or hidden secrets within the church. Widespread media coverage was pivotal in keeping the case alive. News headlines, investigative reports, and televised debates ensured that Sister Abhaya's story remained in the public consciousness. Activists and concerned citizens rallied for a fresh investigation, their voices growing louder each year. The question on everyone's mind: if this was indeed a suicide, why did the evidence seem so incomplete and compromised? Under mounting pressure, the case was transferred to the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, India's premier investigative agency. This marked a turning point. Unlike the crime branch, the CBI approached the case with fresh eyes, employing new methods and interviewing witnesses whose testimonies had previously been ignored. The CBI didn't just inherit a cold case, they inherited a mess of contradictions, destroyed evidence, and lingering suspicions. Yet their investigation unearthed critical new information. They re-examined witness statements, scrutinized timelines, and followed leads that had been dismissed or overlooked. One of the most important aspects of the CBI's work was their ability to cut through the noise of conflicting narratives. They didn't just accept the theories of suicide or accident at face value. Instead, they dug deeper into the dynamics of the convent and its residents. Over time, their persistence began to pay off as they uncovered clues that pointed toward foul play. Shocking revelation. Vargas P. Thomas, a respected officer of the CBI, revealed that he faced immense pressure during the investigation to declare Sister Abhaya's death a suicide. According to his statement, this wasn't an isolated suggestion, but a persistent demand from certain powerful quarters. The implication? The truth of what happened to Sister Abhaya was inconvenient for someone or some group wielding significant influence. This revelation was not a simple confession. Thomas stated that the pressure was so intense and unrelenting that he eventually chose to resign from his position. He left the CBI 9 years before his official retirement, a decision that shocked his colleagues and cast a long shadow over the investigation. Why would a senior officer, so close to his career's pinnacle, give it all up unless the situation had become intolerable? Thomas's claims sparked immediate public curiosity. Who was applying this pressure? The case involved high-profile individuals, including 2 priests and a nun, who were eventually accused of Sister Abhaya's murder. The Catholic Church, with its significant influence in Kerala, had long been suspected of trying to suppress the investigation. But Vargas P. Thomas's statement suggested that the conspiracy ran deeper than anyone had imagined. The officer's resignation also raised questions about the institutional difficulties in solving this case. Was the pressure coming from within the CBI itself? Or were external forces, political, religious, or both, pulling the strings? The public wondered just how compromised the original investigation had been. Social media and news outlets exploded with renewed discussions. People expressed outrage over the blatant attempts to mislead the investigation. If a seasoned officer like Vargas P. Thomas couldn't withstand the pressure, what does that say about our justice system? One commentator asked. Others demanded to know why no one had investigated the sources of this pressure earlier. For many, Thomas's decision to speak out years after his resignation was commendable and frustrating. Why hadn't he revealed this sooner? Could his earlier testimony have changed the course of the case? Dummy tests and investigation continuation. The investigative team knew that the circumstances of Sister Abhaya's death. Her body was found in a well with signs of physical trauma, raised more questions than answers. Authorities initially believed it could have been a suicide, but inconsistencies in the evidence pointed to foul play. To better understand how her injuries were inflicted, investigators decided to conduct dummy tests. The idea behind these tests was simple: replicate the physical conditions surrounding Sister Abhaya's death. A doll was selected to match her size and weight, providing a model that closely mimicked the nun's physical attributes. The goal was to determine whether the injuries on the doll, when subjected to similar conditions, could be matched with those found on Sister Abhaya's body. These tests involved reenacting various scenarios, including drops, physical confrontations, and other potential injury causes. Investigators were particularly focused on how her body could have ended up in the well, the nature of the injuries she sustained, and whether they matched the supposed accident or suicide theory. Despite the painstaking effort to conduct these dummy tests, the results were disappointing. The injuries observed on the doll, while helpful in understanding the mechanics of trauma, did not lead to clear conclusions about the circumstances of Sister Abhaya's death. In short, no definitive answers emerged from the dummy tests. The results were inconclusive because, while the tests helped simulate different scenarios, they couldn't exactly replicate the conditions of Sister Abhaya's death. The doll could only show so much, but it couldn't account for the nuances of the actual scene. How the body was positioned, the exact force involved, or the mental state of those involved in the crime. Additionally, the tests could not fully explain how the injury she sustained aligned with the complex set of events leading to her death. The slow unraveling of Sister Abhaya's case. Answers didn't come easily. A report was finally submitted in 1996, 3 years after the investigation began. It stated, "This should be treated as a murder case. We've exhausted every avenue to uncover who is responsible for this tragic event. But despite all our efforts, no solid results have been found." Even after 4 years of relentless work by the local police, the crime branch, and the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, the case was still a mystery. The burning question remained: what happened to Sister Abhaya? The court rejected this initial report and assigned a fresh CBI team. This new team launched another investigation, and by 1999, after 3 additional years of digging, they reached a chilling conclusion. Sister Abhaya's death was not an accident or suicide. It was murder. The turning point came from medical findings. Unlike the initial post-mortem, a panel of 3 doctors examined the evidence this time. Their meticulous review revealed several injuries on Sister Abhaya's body that had been overlooked in the first post-mortem report. Let's rewind to the day Sister Abhaya's body was discovered. Many nuns at the convent had noticed visible injuries on her body. V.V. Augustine, the investigating officer at the scene, even called a photographer to document the evidence. The photographs revealed injury marks that were suspiciously absent in the earlier post-mortem report. When Sister Abhaya's body was retrieved from the well, nuns and others nearby saw these injuries firsthand. Yet these critical details were somehow left out of the original investigation, raising serious concerns about negligence or intentional tampering. By 1999, after 7 years of investigations, one thing was clear: Sister Abhaya did not take her own life. The evidence strongly suggested murder. But the haunting question remained: who was responsible? The CBI admitted their frustration. "We know it's murder, but we still don't know who the killer is." The court, once again, rejected this inconclusive report. Determined to find the truth, another investigative team was formed. In 2005, after yet another round of investigations, the CBI submitted a new report. Yet again, it stated that while they were certain Sister Abhaya was murdered, they could not identify the perpetrators. The court's response? Rejection again. By now, over a decade had passed since Sister Abhaya's death, and yet justice remained elusive. Each report brought hope, only to end in disappointment. What started as a simple case of a nun's tragic death had turned into a web of unanswered questions, hidden truths, and failed investigations. Who was protecting the real killers? And why? As years passed, the answers would become even more shocking. By this point, activists from the Action Committee were reaching their boiling point. Whispers of injustice and conspiracy began to ripple through communities. Media reports added fuel to the fire, suggesting that the initial investigation into Sister Abhaya's death had been riddled with errors and mismanagement. Claims emerged that Sister Abhaya's burial had been rushed, her clothes burned, and even her diary destroyed. Many believed the post-mortem was incomplete and suspected influential individuals were orchestrating a cover-up. Across Kerala, theories spread like wildfire, each more unsettling than the last. How could a case full of contradictions and missing evidence continue haunting investigators? And why did critical pieces of evidence vanish into thin air? A shocking turn of events. The case took a stunning turn in 2007 after 15 long years of twists and dead ends. A new investigative team was assigned, and they uncovered a revelation that would shift everything. By this time, the case was burdened by numerous challenges. Witnesses had passed away, others had turned uncooperative, and suspects had been questioned endlessly with no concrete leads. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a new witness came forward, an unlikely figure with a surprising story. Who was this unexpected witness? It wasn't a church official, a law enforcement officer, or even someone close to Sister Abhaya. It was, in fact, a thief. Yes, a small-time thief from 1992 stepped into the spotlight, offering a clue that changed the entire trajectory of the investigation. His name was Dakar Raju. At first glance, his testimony seemed questionable. After all, how much could a petty criminal story contribute to solving a high-profile mystery? But as investigators listened, they realized his words carried weight. Raju confessed to committing thefts in the area during the time of Sister Abhaya's death. He described how he would break into homes, steal valuables, and sell them to support his family. His statement aligned with the timeline and provided critical details that hadn't been uncovered before. Against all odds, the testimony of this unknown thief breathed new life into the cold case and set the stage for uncovering the truth. On the night of March 27th, Dakar Raju had a simple plan: break into St. Pius Convent, climb to the roof, and steal the copper rods and wires installed there as lightning conductors. The idea was straightforward: strip the metal and sell it to a scrap dealer for quick cash. Raju arrived under the cover of darkness, ready to carry out his petty theft. But what he saw that night wasn't something he could easily forget. As he prepared to climb, he noticed someone moving stealthily on the convent grounds. The sight was so unusual, it etched itself into his memory. Raju recognized a familiar figure among the shadows: Father Thomas Couture, a priest. Instantly, alarm bells went off in his mind. Why was a priest skulking around the girls' hostel at such an odd hour? Even stranger, Raju claimed he also saw Sister Sephi and Father Jose Puthrukail that night. The situation became deeply unsettling for Raju, a petty thief with a single goal. He had no intention of getting involved in anything beyond his planned theft, but this strange incident made him pause. What could he do? He was already committing a crime. How could he report what he saw without incriminating himself? The following day, everything changed. News broke about Sister Abhaya's death, and Raju saw the police's statements about the case. The unease in his gut grew stronger. He wasn't the man who looked for trouble, but now it seemed trouble had found him. Despite his fear of exposure, Raju did something unexpected. He went to the police and told them what he had witnessed that night. However, his attempt to help took a dark turn. Instead of investigating his claims, the police arrested Raju and accused him of the murder. The theory they concocted was painfully simple. They claimed Raju had broken into the convent to steal, but he panicked when Sister Abhaya stumbled upon him in the act. To silence her screams, they alleged, he killed her and threw her body into the well before fleeing the scene. Case closed, or so they thought. Raju was detained for 58 days. During that time, he faced relentless torture, both physical and psychological. According to Raju, the authorities pressured him to confess to the murder, dangling bribes to make it more tempting. They offered him money, a secure job, assistance with his children's schooling, and even a house. All if he would take the blame. His scrap dealer, Shamir, wasn't spared either. Shamir was also tortured and pressured to pin the crime on Raju. But both men stood their ground, refusing to bow to the corrupt system. When bribery didn't work, the threats escalated. Raju was warned that false charges would be leveled against him if he didn't cooperate. Yet, through it all, Raju remained unshaken. A man who came to the convent that night with dishonest intentions demonstrated extraordinary integrity. Despite being a petty thief, Raju's steadfast honesty set him apart. He refused to confess to a crime he didn't commit, even when it would have been easier to give in. His resilience earned him unexpected admiration, even from the court. From this point, the case took a dramatic twist. The Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, identified two key suspects, Father Thomas Couture and Father Jose Puthrucail. Their suspicions were fueled by a curious account from a neighbor who lived near the convent. This neighbor claimed to have seen Father Thomas Couture's scooter parked outside the convent on March 26th. He recalled heading to a nearby shop for tea and, upon returning around midnight, noticing the scooter still there. At the time, he didn't think much of it. But here's where things got murky. Later, the neighbor changed his story, saying, "I said that under pressure." He joined the growing list of witnesses who backtracked their statements, casting doubt on the investigation. Now, hold on a second. When Adhakar Raju, another witness, brought this to the police's attention, they already suspected foul play. So why didn't they dig deeper into Raju's claims? Why wasn't Father Couture's midnight visit to the convent thoroughly investigated? Or was there something or someone holding them back? Raju later revealed he had been offered money to stay quiet. That raised an even bigger question. Who had the resources and the motive to bribe him? And if Raju's story was true, what on earth was Father Couture doing at the convent in the dead of night? Rumors started to swirl. Allegedly, Father Couture had confided in a friend that he and Sister Sephi, a nun at the convent, were like a married couple. This wasn't a new suspicion. Whispers about their close relationship had circulated for years within and beyond the convent. Nuns had discussed it among themselves, and outsiders had also taken note of their unusual dynamic. Then, in 2008, the case hit a turning point. Based on Raju's statement, the CBI officially named Father Thomas Couture, Sister Sephi, and Father Jose Puthrucail as the prime suspects in Sister Abhaya's murder. Predictably, the defense team for the accused went on the offensive. They tried to discredit Raju, portraying him as a professional criminal with unreliable testimony. But by then, the questions surrounding that fateful night had only grown louder and harder to ignore. How Sister Abhaya's case was finally solved. In court, Raju faced a relentless grilling. The lawyer opposing him brought up 10 criminal cases where Raju was the accused. But instead of denying his past, Raju openly admitted to his wrongdoings. This unexpected honesty turned the lawyer's argument against him. Despite his criminal history, Raju stood firm in his testimony, determined to expose the truth about Sister Abhaya's murder. Raju's damning statement led to a pivotal development in the case. Father Thomas Couture, Sister Sephi, and Father Jose Puthrucail were sent to Bengaluru to undergo narcoanalysis NAR tests. The tests conducted by Dr. Malini aimed to uncover hidden truths. The results were recorded on 3 CDs and forwarded to the Kerala Judiciary Court and the Kerala High Court. However, the case took a bizarre turn when it was discovered that the CDs had been tampered with. When questioned, Dr. Malini, who had been suspended by then, was unable to provide clarity on the tampering issue. Everyone present during the tests denied any involvement, deepening the mystery. To resolve this, the CDs were sent to the Central for Development of Imaging Technology, CDIT, for forensic analysis. The results were shocking. CDIT revealed that each CD had been significantly edited. The recording of Father Thomas Couture's test, originally 32 minutes and 50 seconds, was edited over 30 times. Father Jose's recording, lasting 40 minutes and 55 seconds, had been altered 19 times. Sister Safi's recording, 18 minutes and 42 seconds long, was edited 23 times. The Kerala High Court, alarmed by this blatant tampering, ordered the CBI to present the original recordings within 10 days. But before the deadline, the unedited narco test recordings were mysteriously leaked and aired on a local TV station in Kerala. To this day, how and why they were broadcast remains unknown. The unedited recordings revealed a chilling account of March 27, 1992. According to the narco tests, Sister Abhaya woke up at 4 a.m. Feeling warm, she went to the kitchen to get water. While there, she heard suspicious noises and found Father Couture, Father Jose, and Sister Safi in a compromising situation. Before she could escape, they attacked her in a panic. Sister Safi grabbed an axe from the kitchen and struck Abhaya on the head. The post-mortem report later confirmed severe head injuries. The three then dragged her body to the well and threw her in, hoping to make it look like an accident or suicide. Following the broadcast, the CBI interrogated the accused, but all three were released on bail in 2009. Shockingly, Father Jose was eventually cleared of wrongdoing in the case. For the next decade, the case saw numerous hearings. Finally, in 2020, justice was served. The Kerala High Court sentenced Father Thomas Couture and Sister Safi to life imprisonment based on the narco test results and Raju's testimony. Both were also fined 5 lakh rupees each. After 28 long years, one of India's most perplexing murder mysteries was solved, partly thanks to the testimony of a thief who chose to stand by the truth. What do you think about this story? Was justice truly served? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.